Welcome back. We're visiting with Trevor Loudon, an authority on a whole host of issues, but most especially on the problem of subversion within countries like the United States of America, an open society, freedom loving, that is exploited shamelessly by enemies of this country to subvert us from within. He's the author of a book entitled The Enemies Within, a film of the same name, and a new film called The Enemies Within the Church, we're going to talk about in a moment. Before we do that, Trevor, you were interviewed recently and you talked about how disparate agenda items, whether it's the environmental movement, whether it's the uh, LGBTQ movement, whether it's the labor movement, whether it's the movement to impose vaccine mandates on the rest of us, have all one thing in common. They're part of a Marxist agenda. Talk a little bit about that, if you would, and how it is that there's been such penetration, uh, as well as mobilization of all these entities by enemies of this country.
Well, this is the thing. People look at things like Black Lives Matter burning cities. They look at the radical LGBTQ movement, which is having a massive impact. They're looking at, the rampant political correctnesses on campuses and in the churches. They're looking at the disasters on foreign policy. They're looking at the environmental movement shutting down our energy resources. And they see all these problems, but they don't understand the common thread, and that is these are all Marxist-driven movements. See, Marxism has always wanted to bring down America. On the international stage, the Soviet Union and now China have always been trying to undermine this country internationally and internally. But there are also thousands of bona fide Marxist activists all also leading these major social movements. And they are working in tandem with the foreign enemies to bring this country down. We used to have, the House Un-American Activities Committee. We used to have Senate investigative bodies working these organizations, looking at these organizations. We used to have the FBI taking active interest in these organizations. Now we have none of that. And it's like a cancer. What happens to a cancer when it gets no treatment? It metastasizes, and that's Marxism has metastasized right through our society, and it's threatening our internal stability, which is making us vulnerable to international threats.
Let me ask you about one particular facet of all of that, Trevor, and that's something called critical race theory. It got a fresh look this week from senators probing the nominee President Biden has advanced for the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Katanya Brown Jackson, who has in the past expressed rather strong enthusiasm for critical race theory and the 1619 project that stems from it and the like. Uh, is that a Marxist operation? First, and
Look, look,
secondly, what did you make of her response to these questions about it?
well, look, absolutely. Critical race theory comes from people like Derek Bell, who was very involved in the National Association of Black Lawyers, which was set up, in their own words, to support gun-toting black revolutionaries. He is also affiliated with the International Association for Democratic Lawyers, which was a Soviet legal front. Plus, he used to write for Freedom Ways, which was set up by the Communist Party of China and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union to agitate amongst the black American community. The critical race theory is completely Marxist. It is just applying Marxism, Marxist revolutionary principles to race rather than class. And its associated concept, white privilege, comes from the pro-Chinese communist Ted Allen and Noel Ignatieff. So yes, it's a completely Marxist movement.
And its purpose is dividing us and ultimately conquering us. And
It's a
Katanya,
revolutionary movement, yeah.
yeah, Katanya Brown Jackson's claim that she really doesn't know that much about it. Did you find that credible?
No, I don't. Her whole academic history, her whole legal history is steeped in this stuff. She is a race warrior. She is involved with them. She is part of this movement without a shadow of a doubt. Why else would Biden have nominated her if she wasn't?
Well, especially as I understand it, with the strong support of the Black Lives Matter movement and other
Yeah,
radicals.
which is a pro-Chinese communist operation.
Yeah. Would you say she is disqualified as a candidate for the Supreme Court of the United States?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Her fundamental values are completely opposed to the Constitution that would be sworn to uphold. In absolutely no way should be nominated.
This, well, I hope will be from your lips to not just God's ears, but to those of the United States Senate. Trevor Loudon, let me, in the last 2 minutes we have, very quickly ask you about your new film and findings about enemies, Marxists especially, within one of our most important institutions in this country, the church.
Well, it is the most important institution, socially, because the whole United States Constitution comes out of Christianity, Judeo-Christian values. The very first communist front in America was the Methodist Federation for Social Action. The communists were getting into the churches in the 1920s. Our new movie, Enemies Within the Church, details the roots of this, the modern woke movement, the woke church, which is taking over all of the seminaries, all of the Bible colleges. It's pumping out thousands of new pastors every year. This is a Marxist movement. This is, all about critical race theory, social justice, white privilege, ending global warming, welcoming refugees, illegal immigrants from overseas, etc. All of these Marxist talking points are now embedded in the Southern Baptists, in major evangelical churches. They dominate these seminaries and Bible colleges. The seminaries and Bible colleges today are where the universities were 10 years ago.
Right.
Not quite fully Marxist, but well on the way.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as you say, I think very colorfully metastasizing as well. Trevor,
Yeah.
we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time today. I commend to all of you, both enemies within and enemies within the church. And I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Securing America. I hope you feel better equipped to do so and join us in doing so. And for more, that you will check out securingamerica.tv.